I just turned y'all on with my pen. This is pretty cool. That little button operates my camera. But anyway, Tim with Outdoors for Adventure. Welcome back to our channel. I'm interrupting our Casa Top video series. We have some more videos to come up, for that. Wearing my Skull Crusher Casa Top River t-shirt today. You can pick them up $13 at your local visitor center at the Casa Top State Park Visitor Center. Okay, different type of adventure. I'll be kind of adding these videos in along with the Casa Top River Adventures, although these will be in their own playlist. So, what kind of adventures am I bringing you? Let me show you something. That right there, my friends, is called a Stir Crazy Popcorn Popper. It makes some delicious popcorn. Sure does. Take a good look at it. Stir Crazy Popcorn Popper. But we're not going to be making popcorn, okay? Next item I have to show you, at least part of an item that I have to show you. Ta-da! Little air oven, heating elements right there. Produces air as it cooks. I've got the bowl and the sleeve, but we're not going to be cooking with it, so we don't need that. All we need is this, okay? Next item I need to show you. What we have here used to be a stainless steel pot. I didn't need the whole pot, so I cut about 3 inches of the top off, kept the handle, got me a hole in the side of it here, and mounted me a little box. Pretty cool, huh? Don't look like nothing to y'all, does it? What can you use that for, okay? Well, all those components are going to be part of our next adventure. Y'all looking at me like I'm crazy, aren't you? Some of you have already figured this out. The next component of our adventure you guessed it, coffee. This is some Dunkin' Donuts white chocolate peppermint coffee. And every now and then we like to have some flavored coffee. And this we saw at limited time, so we wanted to try it. And it's pretty good. But this coffee is not what this adventure is about, okay? So let's go back. I showed you all this Stir Crazy Popcorn Popper. This popcorn popper not only makes delicious popcorn. Okay, the tablet just went off. Okay, it also, can be made to use for something else. This part right here, well, that lid just don't want to stay on. Y'all need to redesign that, Stir Crazy. We don't need that lid, and we don't need that, okay? Sorry, birds, didn't mean to scare you if it went that far. But we do need this part. And you know these Stir Crazy Popcorn Poppers, they have the little arms in here that spin. Keep that popcorn moving so you get a nice even heat to pop that popcorn and get that perfect pop. Well, this also, this heats up. That's how you pop your popcorn. You have to heat it up. Well, we're not popping popcorn, and we don't want this to heat up. So, on this particular Stir Crazy, this part of it comes out. A little pan with your stir sticks. Okay, don't get dizzy. So we're going to take that out. Put it right there. And then you're going to go in here and you're going to remove these screws because you need to get this plate out. Because you have to go inside here and unplug your heat element because you do not want this to get hot. Now, be sure when you unplug it that you either snip the ends or you just take some black tape, electrical tape, and tape them up so they don't touch nothing in there, because they're still going to have power coming to them. But you unplug your heating element and then make sure everything's safe, you know, taped up or whatever, and then put your screws back in, put it all back together. Now we'll put this back in here, just like so. So what we have here, when you plug this in, and this one actually has on-off switch, is the only part of this that works now is this spinner. Okay, then you got to go back to this little air oven. The only part of this air oven you need is this part. You don't need the sleeve. At least when I bought this one, there was a stainless sleeve and there's a bowl, glass bowl. And I didn't need a glass bowl, and I'm not going to chunk it over there because I think my wife would be mad at me. Glass be everywhere. But anyway, you just need this part. All you need. Okay. So, I showed you this. I'm going to get back to this. But let's go back again to the popcorn popper. Stir crazy. I have another one of these that I use for popcorn. It still gets hot. Okay, but anyway, now back to this contraption that I made here. Now, what this does is it's going to fit on top of this popcorn popper. Now, yes, the air oven came with stainless steel sleeve, but the stainless steel sleeve was not the correct diameter that I wanted to fit on this popcorn popper. It's too big, okay? It just wouldn't fit on there good. And I just happened to have this stainless steel pot laying around that we weren't using, and I took a saw and I cut it. I just needed 3 inches, 2.5, 3 inches would do. And I played with this setup until I got what I wanted, what I preferred. And I told y'all I cut a hole in this. There's a square hole cut on this side, and I mounted this box. I just cut a hole in the lid, and I folded the metal over the hole that's in this to hold it up in there. And I also took a little piece and made a flap in here in front of the hole. Now there's a reason for this, okay? And we're going to get into more depth about this in another video. Okay, well that sets on top of the popcorn popper, just like so. And then this will fit on top of this. Ain't that pretty? I can say it proper. Isn't this pretty? Isn't this beautiful? I think it's beautiful. Anyway, what this now is a coffee roaster. Now, I'm sure that some of my coffee roasting friends have already figured out what's going on. Some of you may have already seen videos on YouTube about it. I've actually talked to a couple people, my subscribers, that roast their own coffee, and one of the gentlemen uses an air popper. And you can use an air popper. I've done it. Works fine. I'm not going to say that it works as good as this, though. It's just, this is my opinions, totally my opinions. Oh, and when y'all go in there taking the wires off this heat element, you're doing that at your own risk, okay? I am not liable. Easy to do, you won't have no problems. So, what you do, once you get this together, is you pour your coffee beans in here, your green coffee beans, because you're going to roast them. And then you put this on there. And then of course I haven't plugged in, I start my arms to rotating in there. And then this air roaster, I turn it, on, air oven, whatever you want to call it. And I use high heat. I just turn it all the way up. And then it has a timer on it. I turn the timer all the way up. Because when I first started roasting coffee, okay, man, I had an app on my phone. I was writing everything. I had a tablet. I was writing everything down. I was keeping up with the different coffee beans. I was keeping up with how long it took to get to the roast I wanted. You know, I was putting a lot of time, a lot of research into it. I had already researched how to roast coffee beans, the light roast, the medium roast, the dark roast, the burnt roast, the cracks, how many cracks that you hear when the coffee bean is roasting. You know, I've already done all that. I went through the research, and I was keeping up good records, and it got to where I just knew. I could just look at the bean, I could hear the beans, I could smell the beans. I mean, I knew when the roast is where I wanted it to be. So all that time that I was doing, keeping records and using my app, I don't do that anymore. And yeah, I really haven't run into a case to where I wish I had continued. I just know, you know, if I'm looking for a light roast, I can look at the bean and I know when it's where I want it to be. Same with medium and dark roast, and I try not to burn it. Okay. There's a fine line between dark roast and burnt. But anyway, this is the system I use. It's been working great. I have roasted many pounds of coffee since I have had this setup. This works great. You have your beans being stirred and rotated, and then you have airflow from this in on top of the beans, and of course you have the heat element putting that heat to the beans. And I'm not going to tell you how long it takes because there's different times depending on what roast you're doing, and we are going to roast some beans outside. The reason I said outdoor adventure, to me this is an adventure, and it's been a fun adventure, and we're going to do it outside because this is going to be messy. Thus, this little can right here. What this does is, I showed you the little flap I have in there where the air on this thing, I think it rotates this way. Yeah, it should rotate this way. And as that roasts the beans, there's an outer shell that comes off of that bean, and they start flying around in there. And I'm talking there's going to be a lot of it. And them beans are roasting, and them shells are popping off, and they're flying around in there, and then they hit this little flap, and some of them go through this hole, and then this catches those shells, and there's a little hose I poked all in here so the smoke and air can escape. And now you don't have to have this. You could just put a hole in here with maybe not even a flap, and them shells are going to just, if you're outside, they're just going to fly out in the air, and they're not going to hurt anything. But one reason I went ahead and I put this box on there is I felt like I was losing some heat. I wanted to hold more heat in here, so I put this on there, and it keeps more heat in there and lets the smoke escape. It catches some of the shells. It doesn't catch all of them. Some of them still come up in the air, you know, and you'll even get some down in here that you have to clean up. But it's okay. It roasts a great coffee. And we're going to show you how it's all done. But if you look online for coffee roasters, I guess I'll move this out of my face. They're quite expensive. And this is not, well, this is something I kind of come up with on my own. But the coffee popper and this air oven, I saw other videos online about it. So that's where I got my idea, and I appreciate the people for posting those videos, because I was looking at buying a pretty expensive roaster, and when I saw these videos, I said, well, that looks like just as good a coffee as they're getting out of those drum roasters. So I got it, figured it'd be worth a try, you know, and if it didn't work, I have a nice air oven that I can use to cook with, and I don't want to get any kind of other contamination on this unit. All I want it for is coffee, but if I didn't like the way it worked, I could have used it for cooking. And of course, popcorn popper, the way I did mine, I can go back inside and I can heat my heating element back up, and I can go ahead and use it for popping popcorn. Now, I'm going to show y'all how to use this, but I'm going to kind of cover everything in case y'all want to go ahead and buy this stuff. And if you already have your green coffee beans, you might want to go ahead and roast some beans before I make the next video, because you already experienced at roasting coffee. So just getting this built, you're pretty much ready to go. Now, I'll roast my coffee like I showed you. And then once I get it to that roast that I like, you know, I turn everything off and I take this off. And normally the beans I have in here do not overflow this pan, okay? So I can go ahead and I can remove this also. So all I have left is this with the roasted beans in it. Now, for me, I like to cool my bean down just as quickly as possible. Once it's to the roast, because it'll continue to roast. So what I do is I'll have a table with a cookie pan, a big cookie sheet. And then I'll have a fan at one end of it, and it'll be on blowing down onto that cookie sheet. Okay, and then I pull this part, and like I said, I like the fact that this is one of the popcorn poppers that this is separated from. They do make them where they're just one piece. I prefer this. Okay. Now, the only thing about this is you will get coffee bean shells in this part that you'll have to clean out, but it's no big deal. I think this coming off is worth, you know, that trouble. But then, okay, I've got the cake pan here, or cake pan, I'm sorry. I've got the cookie pan, thin sides. And then I've got my fan here. And then what I'll do is I'll slowly pour them coffee beans out onto the pan in front of that fan. And the reason for that is that fan, of course, the air is cooling the bean, but there's also going to be coffee shell from the bean, a lot of them, still in your beans. Because all of them don't go in that little can, or they're not all going to blow out that exhaust. There's going to be a lot of them left in your beans, and you want to get that out of there. So as you're pouring them on that pan, the air is blowing those shells. You know, they're real lightweight, so that the air is blowing the shells out of your beans, and you're cooling your bean at the same time. Once I have them on the pan, I'll leave the fan going, and I'll take a wood spoon, and I'll stir the beans. That way I'm working any shell that's left in the beans. They're going to blow out, and at the same time I'm rotating the beans so that bean's cooling down. Once the beans are cooled down, I put them in a bowl. I don't cover them. I'll leave them in a bowl and just, you know, not cover them, leave them setting for 2-3 days, and then I'll put them in a mason jar. Or if I have some of our bags, I'll put them in a bag. But normally I just put them, for us, I just put them in a mason jar. And the reason you do that is they kind of like ungas as they sit, and the flavor intensifies. So after about 3 days, you're pretty much done with the ungassing part of it. And it's not going to explode or anything like that. You know, it just, the bean's still working to get that final flavor. And a lot of people will tell you to wait that time before you make coffee out of your roasted beans. Now, I'm an impatient fella. And when I'm out there roasting that coffee, and now let me tell you, when you first start roasting the green beans, they don't smell that good. In fact, some of them stink. But once that roast starts getting on that bean, you start smelling the aroma of that coffee, and it starts smelling good. And when I start smelling coffee, it makes me want to drink coffee. So I ignore what a lot of people say, and I go ahead and I'll get me some of those beans, and I'll grind them up, and I'll make me a pot of coffee. And you know, it tastes fine. I don't have no problem with it. Now, I will say, if you don't wait, it's not as flavorful. It does seem to, after that bean sits a while, the flavor intensifies, and you actually start pulling flavors out of it that you wouldn't taste or smell, for that matter, before that coffee bean degasses. And we'll talk a lot more about this when we're actually roasting the coffee bean, because in fact, if you want to do this, go ahead and get online and do a little research about roasting your coffee beans. Yeah, there'll be some other videos using this method, and some of the people are pretty good about talking about listening to the cracks, the first crack, the second crack, and what in relation to that crack is, you know, the bean is to with your mild roast, your dark roast, or your medium roast. And like I said, I've roasted enough coffee beans with this setup. I mean, it's been through a lot of beans that I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm after, and I can just look at the bean. I listen for them cracks, and I can smell the aroma from the bean, and I know when I have that bean exactly where I want it. And I pull them off, get them cooled down, and then I've got coffee. I have 5 pounds of green bean coffee coming. It'll be here tomorrow, or it should be here tomorrow. So tomorrow I'll be roasting coffee, and I'll be sharing that with y'all. I ordered these beans from Coffee Bean Corral. Ordered all my beans online. I ordered from many different places. It just happened I was checking the sales out, and this is one of their house blends that I ordered, and I'll talk to you more about that when they get here. I'll show you. In fact, before we roast the coffee, I'm gonna make a video about the beans, okay? So that'll be the next video, and all this will be in the playlist, so it'll be easy to find. So next video, we're gonna talk about the coffee beans. And then the video following that, we're going to roast the coffee beans. And then the video after that, we're going to make some coffee from the beans we roasted. So I hope y'all follow along. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. And I hope y'all ready to roast some coffee, because this is going to be fun. I love roasting my own coffee. And we've actually been buying store-bought coffee the last 2 months, because I've just been too lazy and not taking the time to get my green bean ordered. Now, I am thinking about in the past roasting coffee. I have to go through, I have to jump through some hoops to be able to legally sell coffee the way I want to sell it. But I am thinking that this is something we're going to do in the future. I do make coffee for my friends. And they enjoy it, and I can give the coffee as gifts. But for some reason, once you start getting into the selling of coffee, you have to jump through some hoops to get set up to be able to do that. Now, I believe in the state of Texas, you can go to like farmers markets, or I could sell it out the front door, without having to be licensed and all that kind of stuff. But I would have to check in on more of the laws before I did anything. But there's a lot to, from what I'm understanding, you can't just roast your coffee and sell it. Like if I want to sell y'all some coffee, I can't sell it online. You have to have certain licenses, and there's rules and regulations you must follow. So, I have to check into all that, but I do want to brand our own coffee. I have a few different flavors that, I'm not talking flavors like, that white chocolate peppermint. I'm talking just straight coffee flavors. Each bean has a different flavor. The beans from different regions have different flavors. And if you can either roast them beans and make your coffee just out of that single bean type. But if you're after a special flavor, you can get your different beans from your different regions, or different beans from the same region, and then you mix the beans and roast them, and you have a totally different flavor. So I have some of my own flavors that I really like, and I would love to be able to roast those beans, package them up, and sell them to people who would like to have home roast coffee. So that's something I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about selling them at the farmer's market. But we just aren't there yet. For now, we're roasting for us and friends. So, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Like I said, be sure to go down there and subscribe, because there's no telling what kind of stuff's going to pop up on this channel. Hopefully it's all going to be pretty much the outdoors type stuff. And some people may think, well, he's roasting coffee. What's that got to do with outside? And, well, here's what it's got to do with outside. One, you don't want to roast these beans in your house, okay? It's going to be messy. So you're going to have to be outside to roast the beans. At least I would. Two, we've not been camping one single time in all my years of camping that there hasn't been coffee taken to the campsite. You know, loaded up in the vehicle, the coffee there. I've got coffee out in my truck right now. So it has a lot to do with outdoors. Coffee's grown outdoors. And you say, okay, well, you got the outdoors part covered. What about the adventure? Man, roasting coffee is an adventure. It's fun. It takes some thought. You know, you got to watch those beans. You got to get them roasted to exact point that you want to get the flavor that you want. But we'll get more to that later. You know, I'm carrying on, rambling on like I always do. But I get excited about roasting coffee. You just have to forgive me. So y'all have a great day, and be sure to stay tuned for the next video. My beans will be here tomorrow. There'll be a video made tomorrow, and I'll try to get it up tomorrow. And then after that, like I said, we're going to roast some coffee. So we're going to have an outdoors adventure. Later, y'all. Let's go get some coffee.